Thank you, Michael. Dear God, bless all our memories at this time and this time of year that is thick with them. May our minds find healing as we consider your stories and the freshness of these new days. Amen. So Eileen gave us an organic sense of the church year, and I would like to give us kind of an organic sense of the Christmas story by sharing with you this dark part of the Christmas story for sure, in order to connect this part of Herod and all that to the rest of the story in a meaningful way. Allow me to begin right here by picking up the story where we left off a week ago Saturday night on Christmas Eve. And trust me here, I think you'll soon understand of how it fits with the rest of the story. In some sense, this is a tale of two cities. One city and a small town. Jerusalem and the little town of Bethlehem. So consider, if on Christmas night the shepherds had wanted to, they could have made it to Jerusalem by morning following the birth of Jesus. It's only 6 miles from little Bethlehem to the city. And once there, they would have seen the temple standing white and bright like a mountain covered with snow. It would have looked to be on fire because of the burnished gold atop the columns of the sanctuary that would have picked up the morning light. Not long after dawn, business at the temple would be in full swing, which was a huge deal. I mean, the whole thing covered 25 acres. The court of the Gentiles would be loud. Lots of people from all over would have been crowded in there. They accepted almost anyone, including shepherds, but excluded those considered to be lepers, victims of venereal disease, and others considered unclean. But how they could tell who was who, I have no idea. Anyway, in the shadow of 27-foot columns, anyone could buy doves or pigeons suitable for making casual offerings. Those in charge of changing money there would have been busy serving Jews who'd arrived from Egypt or as far away as Babylon, those who were carrying foreign currency. You would have heard many different dialects of Greek and Aramaic spoken. Add to that the sound of cattle and sheep awaiting slaughter, not too different from the sounds of the Bethlehem stable. Just climb 14 more semicircular steps and you'd find the court of the women, where Jesus' parents would soon bring a baby for blessing. Not even the most saintly of women, though, would be allowed to enter the next level of sanctity, the court of men. There you are. Those allowed in there were dwarfed by 50-foot Corinthian columns. And from this place, Jewish men could watch the activities in the court of the priests. Lambs were butchered there twice a day on a huge altar. This was the place where it was believed that Abraham had prepared to sacrifice his son Isaac, but instead sacrificed a lamb. In Jesus' day, the blood there drained into a sophisticated plumbing system, complete with running water so no trace of blood would be left. Behind the altar stood the great white sanctuary with even higher pillars yet, and a huge cypress door adorned with an incredible Babylonian tapestry made of blue, red, purple, and flaxen-colored cloth. The temple was the crowning achievement of the 33-year reign of King Herod, called Herod the Great. He was born in the northernmost province of Idumea of a family that had only been Jewish for 2 generations. For this reason, he was not trusted by the Jewish populace, who saw him for what he was, a pawn of imperial Rome. Herod's desire was to drag these tradition-bound Jews into a modern cosmopolitan world. And thus the introduction of the Babylonian tapestry and the Greek columns and the countless Roman marble stairs. Now what are all these Gentile touches in a Jewish temple? Well, everyone but the most conservative Jews overlook them. Everything except for one decoration, one only. Over the gate of the court of the Gentiles stood an eagle, which was the central symbol of Roman might. Now, Herod did his best to remind the conservatives that the eagle was a symbol dear to Jews as well. Remember on eagle's wings? But no one bought that. They knew what it was. Somewhere around the time of Jesus' birth, two young Pharisees named Matthias and Judah were incensed by this eagle. And so along with 40 other studious, idealistic Jews, they hoisted ropes and pulled the eagle down, shattering it on the marble below. Well, Herod threw the lot of them in prison with the following advisory. He was sick, and believing he was dying, he left strict orders that at the moment of his death, all those would be executed. In this way, he thought to ensure that the city would be thrown into mourning and no one would be able to say the wailing wasn't maybe for Herod himself. Pathetic, huh? Now, while Herod's eagle was coming down, tradition says that another symbol, a great star, was being raised ever so silently a dozen miles away over Bethlehem. So think about it. Herod the Great is dying. He had killed one wife and 3 of his sons out of paranoia. And now close to death, he's still paranoid about who might unseat him. Sounds like Vladimir Putin, who rumor says, right, is ill with a serious form of blood cancer, and still apparently busies himself daily with ordering his critics to be thrown out of hotel windows all over the world. It's an old story. Matthew claims Herod the king even fears a little baby born in a little 2-bit Bethlehem. Some would eventually call that baby king of the Jews. But he would be an odd king, right? I mean, not very royal. He would grow up to say things like, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." No Roman would say that, huh? Yes, and take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke, unlike Rome's yoke, is easy, and my burden is light. St. Francis de Sales, who understood the heart of Jesus like few others, is remembered to have said, we began with this, remember, nothing is as strong as real gentleness. Nothing is as gentle as real strength. That is the new dispensation, ushered in by that star going up. And I wonder if old dying Herod, sitting in Jerusalem, knew that an era was beginning to fade. He'd soon fall. And Rome too, okay, it would still take several hundred years for Rome to fall, but that was coming. And some could smell it in the air. Remember the news video we all saw from China years ago during the Tiananmen Square uprising? That idealistic young man, we never learned his name, did we? Armed with nothing more deadly than a shopping bag, standing in front of a line of tanks. Talk about real strength. China's leadership since then has done everything they could to obliterate that image from its people's memory. But I tell you, any government that doesn't recognize the moral muscle behind that kind of defiance is coming down eventually. That's the message of Jesus' cross. That's what gathers us here today. History tells us that a meter is running on Rome's kind of programmed injustice, and all injustice like it everywhere. In the story then that we heard read by Julie this morning, King Herod, threatened by talk of a new king, orders the killing of all the boy babies around the little town that's just beyond the suburbs of Jerusalem. And in the story we heard down through the ages, innumerable kings and dictators have ordered the massacre of children too. Something completely out of sync with, oh, little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Still in death, maybe. Well, Matthew's Christmas pageant ends not with angels proclaiming goodwill, but these lines that Matthew borrows from the prophet Jeremiah. Remember this tucked in the story. A voice is heard in Ramah, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more. Matthew's idea is this. Herod was no fool. He had been in power long enough to be able to tell a rival when he saw one. What poor shepherds saw as an innocent baby, Herod knew as a threat to everything on which his kingdom was based. So Herod, as Matthew depicts him, joins all the other leaders of our age. Hitler, Pol Pot, Stalin, Mao, Milosevic, Putin, all men who don't mind a little murder in order to silence those courageous enough to speak truth to their power. I mean, look, the powerful are always wanting to silence the brave who will expose them for who they really are. And you know, it's not an accident that in Hans Christian Andersen's story of the Emperor's New Clothes, it's a child, remember, who says what all the adults are afraid to say, that the Emperor, for all his greatness, is naked. Remember the child who was specifically targeted in Pakistan, Malala Yousafzai? Remember Malala? Targeted for pointing out the moral nakedness of the misogyny of the leaders of her country. She once said, she said, I don't want to be thought of as the girl who was shot by the Taliban. I want to be known as the girl who fought for education. This is the cause to which I want to devote my life, she said. Shortly after that, she was on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And he asked her how she could go on speaking out on behalf of children, girl children especially, after being shot by a member of the Taliban, knowing that she could easily be shot again and this time die. And here's what she said. She said, I used to think that the Talib would come and he would just kill me. But then I said, if he comes, what would you do, Malala? And then I would reply to myself, Malala, just take a shoe and hit him. But then I said, if you hit a Talib with your shoe, then there would be no difference between you and the Talib. You must not treat others with cruelty. You must fight others through peace and through dialogue and through education. Then I said, I will tell him how important education is, and that I even want education for your children as well. And I will tell him, that's what I want to tell you, now do what you want. And then she went a bit further. She said, we realize the importance of our voices only when we are silenced. That is the answer to all the Talibs and Putins and Herods in the world. Remember St. Francis de Sales? Nothing is as strong as real gentleness. Nothing is as gentle as real strength. Our country doesn't understand that. We've been through a period where we've gotten that totally backwards, but it is the message of Christ, and it will not be silenced. Shortly after Malala was shot, 5 million Pakistani men, women, and children signed petitions calling for every girl in Pakistan to have the chance to go to school. 5 million. And the same thing is beginning to happen in Iran now. The meter is running on the abusive Islamic Republic, which is heaping abuse on its women and children too. Here is just a little bit of news from there, from just Thursday, just a couple of days ago. It takes a special kind of coward, the news piece said, to kill a child and then steal the body. To execute someone and only tell their family afterward. To shoot at people chanting the word freedom and shut off the internet in hopes that no one will find out. In the last 3 months, the Islamic Republic of Iran has done all this and more. If you were born a girl from the age of 9, you must wear a headscarf everywhere you go. You cannot dance in public. And if you are a woman, you cannot sing either. You cannot hang out with anyone of the opposite gender who you are not directly related to. And under Islamic law, there are only 2 genders. Same-sex relationships are illegal, and leaders pretend that gay people do not exist. But still, the leadership there continues to act with impunity, as if their acts were sanctioned by God. Well, you know, Herod and his henchmen thought they had it all taken care of too. How wrong, how incredibly wrong they were. Tradition says that Joseph, Jesus' dad, remember, at an angel's instruction, hunkered down in Egypt until word came again from the same angel that Herod was dead. The eagle was coming down. The star was on the rise. Well, other eagles, even in this country, are beginning to fall. They are being exposed daily now for the phonies they are and always have been. The truth has taken a lot of hits in the past few years. We all know this. But the last 6 months has exposed a lot of that to the light. So, remember the words of Mahatma Gandhi. They may not be 100% right, but they're close enough. They give me hope, and I want hope in a new year. Don't you? Let me close with them. Gandhi said, "When I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love has always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible. But in the end, they always fall. Think of it," he said, always.